The garbage truck rolls down Maplecrest Drive at 6:47 every Tuesday and Friday morning, and the man behind the wheel, the one in the reflective vest and the navy work gloves with the left thumb worn through, always slows down when he passes the house at number 34. Not a full stop. Never a full stop. Just a slight easing off the accelerator, a barely perceptible downshift, the kind of thing you'd only notice if you were watching him closely, which nobody ever does because nobody watches the garbage man. He's invisible, the way all people who handle what others throw away are invisible, present and necessary and unseen. But the man in the truck sees everything. He sees the front porch with the wicker chairs and the hanging fern that gets replaced every spring. He sees the red front door that was blue 2 years ago and white before that. He sees the bicycle in the driveway, a purple one with silver streamers on the handlebars that wasn't there last year, which means the girl has outgrown the pink one with the training wheels and moved on to something bigger, something faster, something that means she's growing up and he's missing it. He sees the girl. Not every morning. She's usually inside at 6:47, still sleeping or eating breakfast or getting ready for school. But sometimes, maybe once a month, maybe twice, she's out on the porch or riding the purple bicycle in slow loops on the driveway or sitting on the front step with a book in her lap. And the man in the garbage truck watches her for the 4 seconds it takes to pass the house, and those 4 seconds are the most important seconds of his week. Her name is Iris. She doesn't know he exists. Dominic Carver is standing in the kitchen of the house at 34 Maplecrest Drive, pouring coffee into a mug that says, "World's Best Dad" in painted letters that Iris made at a ceramics class 2 Christmases ago, when Iris comes down the stairs in her school uniform with her backpack over one shoulder and her hair in a braid that's already coming undone. "Morning, Bug," Dominic says. "Morning, Dad." She drops the backpack on the bench by the door, the bench Dominic built himself, badly, from a YouTube tutorial and lumber from the hardware store, and which lists slightly to the left in a way that Margot has never let him forget, and slides onto a stool at the kitchen island. Dominic sets a plate in front of her, toast with peanut butter, banana slices, a glass of orange juice, the same breakfast he's made her every school morning for 6 years. Iris takes a bite and opens her sketchbook. She's been drawing constantly this year, filling page after page with portraits of people she sees at school, at the park, on the street. She has an eye for faces, a precision in the way she captures the angle of a jaw or the weight of a forehead that startles Dominic sometimes, because it's a talent he doesn't share and can't explain. He watches her draw while he finishes his coffee. The kitchen is warm. The house is quiet. Margot left for work at 6, the way she always does, because the architecture firm she partners at requires early mornings and late nights, and the Carver household runs on a rhythm that Dominic has fine-tuned over 6 years of being the one who's home. He works from his office upstairs, financial consulting, the kind that can be done in sweatpants with a headset and a spreadsheet, and his schedule is built around Iris. Drop-off at 7:30. Pick-up at 3:15. Homework, dinner, bedtime, repeat. He doesn't mind. He chose this. When he and Margot adopted Iris 6 years ago, they made a decision that one of them would be the anchor, the constant, the person who is always there when the front door opens after school. Dominic volunteered, not because his career mattered less, but because from the moment he held Iris for the first time, this tiny girl with enormous brown eyes who looked at him with a seriousness that seemed far beyond her years, he understood that his purpose had shifted. That the spreadsheets and the client calls and the quarterly reviews were the machinery of his life, but this girl was the point of it. The adoption had not been simple. It had been private, arranged through an attorney named Feldstein, who specialized in cases where the biological parent was living but unable to provide care. Dominic and Margot had met the biological father once, a single meeting in Feldstein's office 4 days before the adoption was finalized. The man was thin, exhausted, wearing a flannel shirt with a frayed collar, and he sat across the table with his hands folded in his lap and his eyes fixed on a photograph of Iris that Feldstein had placed between them. The man didn't say much. He signed the papers with a steady hand. He asked 2 questions. Would Iris have her own room? Would they read to her before bed? Dominic said yes to both. The man nodded. He stood up. He looked at Dominic and said, "Take care of her." And then he walked out of the office and Dominic never saw him again. Dominic thinks about that man sometimes, not often, the way you think about someone you met once in a context that was painful and significant and that you've deliberately moved past. He thinks about the flannel shirt, the folded hands, the two questions that told him everything he needed to know about what kind of father this man had been and how much it cost him to stop being one. But those thoughts are rare, and they pass, and the man in the flannel shirt has become a figure in Dominic's memory, the way all peripheral people do, present but fading, real but receding, a face he saw once and could probably still recognize if he saw it again, but which he has no reason to expect he ever will. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from today, and if this story already has your attention, subscribe to Untold Hearts right now, because what happens next will stay with you long after it's over. The man in the garbage truck is named Wesley Greer. He's 41 years old. He has broad shoulders and a lean frame that carries the work of his job, the lifting, the hauling, the hours on his feet in weather that ranges from brutal to merely unpleasant. His hair is dark brown and cut short, practical, the kind of haircut you get at the barber on Main Street for $14. His jaw is angular, his eyes are brown, the same brown as Iris's, which is a detail that would be obvious to anyone who saw them side by side, but nobody ever does, because Wesley makes certain of that. He has worked for Consolidated Waste Services for 4 years. Before that, he worked at a warehouse in Bridgeport. Before the warehouse, he worked at a gas station. Before the gas station, he worked wherever someone would hire a man with no fixed address and no references and no explanation for the 3-year gap on his resume. The 3-year gap was Iris. Wesley's wife, June, died when Iris was 2. Cerebral aneurysm. She was standing in the kitchen making coffee on a Sunday morning, and she collapsed, and she was gone before the ambulance arrived. There was no warning, no illness, no slow decline that allows you to prepare, to build the walls that will hold when the flood comes. It was instantaneous, the difference between having a life and having wreckage, measured in the time it takes a woman to fall from standing to the floor. Wesley tried. For 3 years, he tried. He worked nights at a packaging plant and left Iris with a neighbor named Mrs. Hoffman, who was 73 and kind, and who loved Iris but who couldn't keep doing it, whose own health was failing, who told Wesley one evening with tears in her eyes that she was sorry, but she just couldn't anymore. Wesley understood. He didn't blame her. He moved to a different apartment, found another sitter, lost that sitter when the woman moved away, found another, lost the job when he was late too many times because the sitter canceled and he had no backup. The math of single parenthood without a safety net is brutal and unforgiving. Every hour has to be accounted for. Every dollar has to stretch. Every plan has to have a backup, and every backup has to have a backup, and when the backups fail, and they always fail eventually, because the system is not built for one person doing the work of 2, the whole structure collapses. The first year was survivable. Mrs. Hoffman watched Iris during Wesley's night shifts, and the packaging plant paid enough to cover the rent and the groceries and the diapers, though not much else. Wesley ate whatever was left after Iris ate, the crusts she didn't want, the last spoonful of applesauce, the cold remainder of whatever he'd heated in the microwave. He lost 20 pounds that year. His clothes hung on him the way they hang on people who are disappearing slowly, the body consuming itself to keep the engine running. The second year was harder. Mrs. Hoffman's hip went bad. She could still watch Iris, but not every night, and the gaps in coverage meant Wesley had to call in sick to the plant, and calling in sick meant losing shifts. And losing shifts meant the rent check bounced in March and again in May. He found a woman named Carla who could babysit on the nights Mrs. Hoffman couldn't, but Carla charged $12 an hour, and Wesley's take-home from the plant was $14.50, which meant that on Carla nights he was working 8 hours to net $20, which is the kind of math that makes you laugh or cry, and Wesley had no energy for either. The third year, everything broke at once. Mrs. Hoffman told him she was sorry, but she just couldn't anymore. Her own health was failing, the hip, and now her heart, and her daughter in Florida wanted her to move south. She cried when she told him. She held Iris for a long time and said, "You be good for your daddy." And then she was gone, and Wesley was standing in the doorway of his apartment with a child on his hip and no one to call. He moved to a different apartment, Cheaper, smaller, a studio with a kitchenette and a bathroom down the hall that he shared with 2 other tenants. Found another sitter through a church bulletin board. Lost that sitter when the woman moved to Worcester for a job. Found another through a co-worker. Lost the job when he was late 3 times in 2 weeks because the new sitter canceled at the last minute, and Wesley had no backup, no safety net, no one to call at 11 at night who would come sit with a sleeping child while he went to pack boxes at a warehouse for 8 hours. Each time a piece fell away, Wesley rebuilt. Each time he rebuilt, the structure was a little more fragile, a little more dependent on everything going exactly right. And when you're building a life on a foundation of minimum wage and no margin, nothing ever goes exactly right for long enough. Wesley held it together for 3 years. 3 years of working nights and not sleeping and eating whatever was left after Iris ate, and washing her clothes in the bathtub sink of the studio apartment because the laundromat was 6 blocks away and he couldn't leave her alone. 3 years of being both parents and failing at both, not because he wasn't trying, but because one person cannot be 2 people, and the math doesn't work, and the exhaustion accumulates compound interest that no amount of love can pay off. He gave Iris up when she was 5, not because he wanted to, not because he stopped loving her. He gave her up because he came home from a double shift at 6 a.m. and found her sitting on the kitchen floor in a diaper that hadn't been changed in 12 hours, eating crackers from a box she'd pulled off the counter, and she looked up at him with those enormous brown eyes. June's eyes, his eyes, the eyes that would follow him for the rest of his life. And she said, "Daddy, I'm cold." The apartment had no heat. The landlord had shut it off because Wesley was 2 months behind on rent. It was January. His daughter was sitting on a cold floor in a dirty diaper eating stale crackers in an unheated apartment, and she was smiling at him because she was happy he was home. And in that moment, Wesley understood with absolute clarity that his love for her was not enough. That love without resources is just suffering with a better name. That the kindest thing he could do for the person he loved most in the world was to give her to someone who could do what he could not. He called Feldstein the next day. The adoption process took 4 months. During those 4 months, Wesley got Iris into a temporary foster placement, a good one, a couple named the Myers who had 3 dogs in a fenced yard and who sent Wesley photos every week. He saw her smiling in those photos. Real smiles. The kind that come from warmth and food and clean clothes and the security of knowing that someone is there, reliably, every morning and every night. The day he signed the papers in Feldstein's office was the worst day of his life. Worse than June's death, because June's death was something that happened to him. Giving up Iris was something he did, a choice, the right choice, the necessary choice, the only choice. But a choice, and the weight of it settled on his shoulders that afternoon and has never lifted. He asked 2 questions. Would she have her own room? Would they read to her before bed? The man across the table, Dominic Carver, dark hair, steady eyes, a wedding ring that caught the light, said yes to both. Wesley believed him. He could see it in the man's face, the particular seriousness of someone who understands what they're being given and what it cost. Wesley stood up. He looked at Dominic and said, "Take care of her." And then he left. He didn't plan what happened next. He didn't wake up one morning and decide to become a garbage man who drives past his daughter's house twice a week. It happened the way most important things in Wesley's life have happened, gradually, accidentally, through a series of small decisions that accumulated into something enormous. He moved to the town where the Carvers lived. Not immediately. He spent 2 years in Bridgeport, then Hartford, working and saving and trying not to think about the fact that his daughter was 20 miles away, living a life he gave her but couldn't share. Then the warehouse closed. He needed work. Consolidated Waste Services was hiring in the town where Iris lived. He applied. He got the route. He discovered on his 3rd day that the route included Maple Crest Drive. He could have requested a different route. He could have transferred. He could have done the reasonable, healthy, responsible thing and put distance between himself and the child he'd surrendered. He didn't. Instead, he drives past 34 Maple Crest Drive twice a week at 6:47 a.m., and he slows down. And he looks, and he sees the porch and the bicycle and sometimes the girl. And those 4 seconds sustain him in a way that nothing else in his life does. They're not enough. They will never be enough. But they're what he has. If you're feeling this story, hit that like button right now. It costs nothing and it helps Untold Hearts reach more people who need stories like this. Now, back to the story. The morning it happens is a Tuesday in October. The air is sharp and the leaves on Maple Crest Drive have turned the particular shade of amber that makes the whole street look like it's on fire. Wesley is running the route, same as always. He's 2 houses from number 34, moving at the usual pace, the truck's hydraulics groaning as the arm lifts and empties a bin. He sees Iris. She's on the sidewalk in front of the house, crouched down, looking at something on the ground. Her backpack is on the sidewalk beside her. She's wearing a denim jacket and her hair is in a braid. It's always in a braid now, he's noticed, since last spring. And she's completely absorbed in whatever she's found. A caterpillar maybe, or a crack in the concrete, or one of the things that children find endlessly fascinating and adults have learned to walk past. Wesley slows the truck. He watches her for a second. 2 seconds, the usual. And then he sees the car. It's a silver sedan coming from the opposite direction, moving too fast for a residential street. Wesley knows this road. He's driven it 200 times. The speed limit is 25. The sedan is doing at least 40, maybe more, and it's drifting. Not dramatically, not a Hollywood swerve, but a gradual drift toward the right side of the road, toward the curb, toward the sidewalk where Iris is crouched. Wesley doesn't think. There's no time for thinking. Thinking is what you do when you have options, and Wesley has exactly 1 option and 3 seconds to execute it. He throws the truck into park. He's out of the cab before the air brakes finish hissing. He is running, not jogging, not hurrying, running, the kind of full-body sprint that rips through whatever conditioning time and neglect have layered over the athlete he used to be. He crosses the street in 4 strides. He reaches Iris in 6. The sedan hits the curb. The right front tire catches the concrete edge and the car lurches sideways, shearing across the patch of sidewalk where Iris was crouched 2 seconds ago. 2 seconds. The margin between everything being fine and everything being destroyed is 2 seconds and the length of a man's arm. Because Wesley grabs Iris around the waist and lifts her and pivots his body between her and the car, and they land on the grass of the front yard as the sedan scrapes past, takes out the neighbor's mailbox, and comes to a stop against a tree. The sound is enormous. Metal on concrete, the pop of a tire, the crack of the mailbox post, and then it's quiet. The kind of quiet that follows violence, the shocked silence of a world recalibrating. Wesley is on his back on the grass. Iris is in his arms. She's shaking. Her eyes are wide. She's looking at him the way she looked at him when she was 2 years old, and he was the whole world. Except she doesn't remember that. She doesn't know him. To her, he's a stranger in a reflective vest who just appeared from nowhere and saved her life. "You're okay," Wesley says. His voice is steady. His hands are not. "You're okay? You're safe." Iris stares at him. Her mouth opens. She's trying to speak. The shock is still moving through her body, that full-system jolt that turns speech into static. A neighbor comes running, then another. Someone is calling 911. Someone else is at the sedan, checking on the driver. An older man, disoriented, possibly a medical episode, his hands still on the wheel. Wesley sets Iris on her feet. He kneels in front of her. He looks at her face, June's cheekbones, his jaw, those brown eyes that are identical to the ones he sees in the mirror every morning. And he says, "Are you hurt? Does anything hurt?" She shakes her head. "My knee," she says in a small voice. There's a scrape on her left knee, raw but not bleeding. Grass stain on her jeans, that's it. That's the total damage. Wesley wants to stay. The want is physical, a gravity in his chest, a force pulling him toward this child the way celestial bodies pull toward each other, inevitably, constantly, without choice. He wants to sit on the grass beside her and hold her until the shaking stops. He wants to call her by her name. He wants to say, "I'm your father, and I've been driving past this house twice a week for 4 years because those 4 seconds of seeing you are the only thing keeping me alive." He doesn't say any of that. He stands up. He squeezes her shoulder. One squeeze, brief, the most contact he's allowed himself in 6 years. And he says, "You're brave. You're going to be okay." Then he walks back to the garbage truck. He gets in. He puts it in gear. And he drives away. Subscribe to Untold Hearts for more stories that prove the most important people in our lives aren't always the ones we recognize. Now, back to the story. Dominic gets the call at 8:14 a.m. He's in his home office on a client call, reviewing a portfolio allocation when his phone buzzes with a number he doesn't recognize. He lets it go to voicemail. It buzzes again. Same number. He excuses himself from the call and answers. "Mr. Carver? This is Officer Tate with the Westbrook Police Department. There's been an incident on Maple Crest Drive involving your daughter." The next 4 minutes are the longest of Dominic's life. The word incident does something to his nervous system that he will never forget. It's not a thought. It's a sensation, a full-body rewiring that happens in less than a second. His vision narrows, his hearing sharpens. His hands, which were resting on the keyboard, go completely still and then begin to shake. He's in the car before Officer Tate finishes explaining. He backs out of the driveway without checking the mirror, because checking the mirror takes 3 seconds, and 3 seconds is the difference between his daughter being okay and his daughter not being okay, and a man he's never met already proved that this morning. He drives to the scene. It's 3 blocks. He could walk it in 6 minutes, but he drives because the car is faster and his hands need something to grip. And when he arrives, Iris is sitting on the front porch of the neighbor's house with a blanket around her shoulders and an EMT kneeling beside her checking her vitals. The street is blocked. A police cruiser sits at the corner with its lights rotating. The silver sedan is against the tree, its front end crumpled, the airbag deployed. Pieces of the neighbor's mailbox are scattered across the sidewalk. There are tire marks on the curb, black rubber streaks that trace the exact path the car took across the spot where his daughter was crouched 30 minutes ago. Dominic looks at the tire marks. He looks at the curb. He maps the trajectory in his mind, the car's angle, the point of impact, the distance from the curb to where Iris would have been, and the math tells him something that stops his breath. If someone hadn't moved her, the car would have hit her at approximately 40 miles per hour. At that speed, against a child's body, the outcome is not a scraped knee. The outcome is the phone call that every parent lives in terror of, the one that begins with, "I'm sorry," and ends with a sound you don't recover from. She sees Dominic, and her face crumbles. Not into tears, into relief, the way a face crumbles when the person you need most in the world appears and the effort of being brave becomes unnecessary. "Dad." He's holding her before the word finishes leaving her mouth. He lifts her off the porch step the way he used to when she was small, and she wraps her arms around his neck and her legs around his waist, and he holds her so tightly that the EMT gently suggests he might be impeding the assessment. Dominic doesn't care. He holds her. The EMT clears Iris. Scraped knee, mild shock, no concussion, no fractures. The driver of the sedan had a blood pressure episode behind the wheel. He's being treated at the scene. The mailbox is demolished, a section of curb is cracked, and Iris Carver is alive because a garbage man crossed a street in 3 seconds and put his body between a child and a 2-ton car. "The garbage man," Iris says, sitting in Dominic's lap on the porch. Her voice is still small but steadier now. "He picked me up. He came out of nowhere, Dad. He grabbed me and we fell on the grass and the car went right where I was standing." "Who is he?" Dominic asks. "Did he tell you his name?" "No. He was wearing one of those bright vests. He had gloves. He was really strong." She pauses. "He had eyes like mine." Dominic doesn't process that detail. Not yet. He's too busy being grateful, too saturated with the adrenaline of almost loss. He thanks the EMT. He thanks Officer Tate. He takes Iris inside, wraps her in a different blanket, their blanket, the quilt from the couch, and sits with her on the living room floor and lets her talk about it until the talking becomes repetition and the repetition becomes calm. "I want to find him," Iris says that night at dinner. Margot is home early. She left the firm the moment Dominic called, and the 3 of them are at the kitchen table, but nobody is eating. "The garbage man. He saved my life, Dad. I didn't even say thank you. He just left. He got in his truck and drove away." Dominic looks at Margot. She nods. "I'll find him," Dominic says. "I'll find him and we'll thank him properly." It takes Dominic 2 days. He calls Consolidated Waste Services on Wednesday morning. He explains the situation, the accident, the rescue, the driver of the Tuesday morning route on Maple Crest Drive. The dispatcher is helpful but cautious. She can't give out employee information, she says, but she can pass along a message. She can also confirm the name of the driver assigned to that route. His name is Wesley, she says, Wesley Greer. He's been on that route for about 4 years. The name doesn't register immediately. It's been 6 years. Names fade the way faces do. The general shape remains, but the specifics blur. We can have him come by the office if you'd like to thank him in person, the dispatcher says. He starts his shift at 5:30 tomorrow morning. He's usually back at the yard by noon. Dominic says he'll come by. He writes down the address of the yard. He hangs up. Wesley Greer. He sits at his desk. He stares at the name he's written on the notepad. Something is pulling at the back of his mind. A thread, faint but insistent, the kind of recognition that lives in the body before the brain catches up. He's heard this name before. He knows he's heard this name before. But the context is missing. The memory is filed in a drawer he hasn't opened in years. He goes to the filing cabinet in the hallway closet, the one with the label Iris, legal on the front. He hasn't opened it since the year they finalized the adoption. Inside are the papers, the court documents, the home study reports, Feldstein's correspondence, and at the bottom, the original intake form with the biological father's information. Name: Wesley James Greer. Dominic reads the name twice. He closes the folder, he opens it and reads it again. He puts the folder on the desk and sits down in the chair, and his hands are shaking. He pulls out the rest of the file. The home study, the social worker's report, the page where Feldstein had written his case notes in cramped handwriting. Father, single, employed at packaging plant, wife deceased, cerebral aneurysm, no family support system, no substance abuse, no criminal history. Relinquishment voluntary. Father cooperative and emotionally present. Assessment. This is not a case of neglect or abandonment. This is a case of a good parent in impossible circumstances making the hardest decision of his life. Dominic reads the assessment 3 times. He never read it before. Not carefully, not the way he's reading it now. 6 years ago, the file was a formality, a stack of papers between him and the thing he wanted, which was Iris. He signed where Feldstein pointed, and he didn't linger on the details because the details were about a man he didn't know and a life he couldn't imagine, and his focus was forward, on the girl, on the future. Now, the details are everything. Now, the man in the file is the man on the garbage route, and the garbage route passes this house. And the assessment says good parent and impossible circumstances, and Dominic is sitting in his home office in a house with central heating and a full refrigerator, and a daughter with her own room and a bookshelf and a nightlight. And the man who gave him all of that is driving a garbage truck past the front door twice a week. The man who saved Iris from a car on Tuesday morning is the man who gave her to him 6 years ago. The garbage man is her father. Dominic doesn't sleep Wednesday night. He lies in bed beside Margot and stares at the ceiling, and his mind runs the same circuit over and over. Wesley Greer is on the garbage route. Wesley Greer drives past this house twice a week. Wesley Greer has been driving past his daughter's house for 4 years. The math is immediate and devastating. 4 years, 2 routes per week, 208 passes per year. 832 times this man has driven a garbage truck past the house where his daughter lives, and Dominic never knew, never noticed, never looked at the garbage truck and thought anything other than the thought every homeowner thinks, which is that the bins need to go out on Monday night. 832 times Wesley Greer saw the porch, the bicycle, the red front door. 832 mornings he slowed down and looked and kept driving. And then, on the 833rd morning, his daughter was in danger, and he left the truck and crossed the street and put his body between her and a car, and he didn't hesitate, not for a fraction of a second, because the 4 seconds twice a week were not a schedule. They were a vigil. They were a father watching over his child the only way he could. Dominic gets up at 4 a.m. He showers. He dresses. He writes a note for Margot. Going to the waste yard. I know who he is. I'll explain tonight. He drives through the dark streets with the radio off and the window cracked and the cold October air on his face. The Consolidated Waste Services yard is on Industrial Road, behind the strip mall with the tire shop and the dollar store. It's a gravel lot surrounded by chain-link fence with a row of garbage trucks parked nose to tail along the back wall. At 5:30 in the morning, the lot is lit by industrial floods and populated by men in work boots and reflective vests, loading their trucks, checking routes, drinking coffee from thermoses and paper cups. Dominic parks outside the fence. He sits in the car. He watches the men moving through the lot, and he doesn't know what he's looking for until he sees it. Wesley Greer is standing beside a truck, checking the hydraulic arm. He's wearing the reflective vest and the Navy work gloves, and his movements are practiced and efficient, the routine of a man who has done this 1,000 times. His hair is short. His build is lean. He looks different from the man Dominic met 6 years ago in Feldstein's office. He looks stronger, more weathered, the way people look when their lives are shaped by physical work and outdoor hours. But the face is the same. The jaw, the eyes, the way he holds his shoulders slightly forward, slightly braced, as if he's carrying something invisible. Dominic gets out of the car. He walks through the gate. The gravel crunches under his shoes. Dress shoes, absurdly wrong for this place, and a few of the workers glance at him. A man in a hard hat asks if he needs help. Dominic says he's looking for Wesley Greer. The man in the hard hat points toward the back row. Dominic walks between the trucks. The air smells like diesel and metal, and the particular damp sweetness of compressed organic matter. The industrial lights cast hard shadows that make everything look like a stage. The trucks, the gravel, the men moving between them. This is a world Dominic has never entered. He puts his bins out on Monday night and they're empty on Tuesday morning, and the space between those two events has always been invisible to him, the way the machinery of someone else's labor is always invisible to the person being served. Wesley is at the last truck in the row. He's checking the hydraulic arm, running his hand along the mechanism with the practiced attention of someone who knows that equipment failure at 7 a.m. on a residential street is not an option. His back is to Dominic. His shoulders are broad under the reflective vest. His work boots are scuffed and the soles are worn down on the outside edges, the way they wear when you spend hours stepping on and off a truck. Dominic stops 10 feet away. He stands there. He doesn't call out. He waits, because something about this moment feels like it should be approached slowly, the way you approach an animal you don't want to startle, the way you approach a truth you're not sure you're ready for. Wesley turns. Maybe he heard the footsteps. Maybe he felt the presence. He straightens up. He pulls off one glove, then the other. He looks at Dominic, and Dominic watches the recognition move through Wesley's face the way weather moves across a landscape, slowly at first, then all at once. They stand 6 feet apart. The industrial lights buzz overhead. A truck engine coughs to life somewhere behind them. "You're Iris's father," Dominic says. Wesley's jaw tightens. His hands, gloveless now, hang at his sides. "You're Iris's dad," he says quietly. The distinction is deliberate. Father, dad. 2 different words for 2 different roles, and Wesley has chosen his with the precision of a man who has spent 6 years understanding exactly what he is and what he isn't. "You saved her life on Tuesday." "I was there." "You've been there for 4 years." Wesley doesn't deny it. He doesn't explain. He stands in the gravel lot in his work vest and his worn boots, and he looks at Dominic with an expression that contains everything he cannot say. The 4-second passes, the 832 mornings, the years of watching his daughter grow up through the windshield of a garbage truck. "She has your eyes," Dominic says. He doesn't know why he says it. It comes out without permission, the way truths do when there's nothing left to protect. Something breaks in Wesley's face. Not dramatically. A microfracture, a shift in the muscles around his mouth, the kind of breaking that only happens to people who have been holding themselves together for a very long time. "Is she okay?" Wesley asks. His voice is rough. "After Tuesday, is she okay?" "She's okay. She's great. Dominic stops. He looks at this man, this garbage man, this father, this person who gave up everything he loved because love alone wasn't enough. And he feels something crack in his own chest, not pity, not sympathy, something deeper and more destabilizing. Recognition. The recognition of one father looking at another and understanding, for the first time, what it cost. "She wants to meet you," Dominic says. Wesley's whole body goes still. "She doesn't know who you are," Dominic adds quickly. She just wants to thank the man who saved her. That's all she knows. The rest that's up to you. Whatever you want. Whatever you're ready for. Wesley looks at the ground. He looks at his hands. He looks at the garbage truck, his route, the machine that carries him past his daughter's house twice a week and then carries him away. I don't want to confuse her, he says. You won't. I gave her up, Dominic. I made that choice. I don't get to walk back into her life because I happened to be there when you didn't happen to be there. Dominic's voice is firm. You chose to be there every Tuesday, every Friday for 4 years. That's not an accident. That's devotion. The word hangs between them. Devotion. It's a word that means something different to each of them. To Dominic, who has spent 6 years building a daily devotion of toast and braids and bedtime stories, and to Wesley, who has spent 6 years building a devotion of distance and 4-second glimpses and the terrible discipline of loving someone you can't hold. Wesley wipes his face with the back of his hand. His eyes are wet. His voice is not. Saturday, he says. I'm off Saturday. If you haven't subscribed to Untold Hearts yet, now is the moment. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and join us for stories that prove family is bigger than blood. Now let me tell you what happens on Saturday. Saturday morning. October, the kind of morning that smells like cold and wood smoke, and the particular sweetness of leaves decomposing on wet ground. Dominic and Margot and Iris are in the kitchen. Iris is wearing her denim jacket and her hair is in a braid. Dominic did it this morning, the way he does every morning, 3 strands woven over each other in a pattern that June Greer used to do when Iris was 2, though neither of them knows that. Is he coming here? Iris asks. She's been asking about the garbage man all week. She drew a picture of him, broad shoulders, reflective vest, dark hair, from memory, and taped it to the refrigerator. The drawing is remarkably accurate because Iris has June's gift for faces and Wesley's stubbornness about detail. He's coming, Dominic says. The doorbell rings at 10. Dominic opens the red front door, and Wesley Greer is standing on the porch. He's wearing a clean flannel shirt, different from the one he wore in Feldstein's office 6 years ago, but the same style, the same plaid pattern, as if flannel is the only language his wardrobe speaks. His hair is freshly cut. He shaved this morning. His hands are at his sides, and they are not in work gloves for the first time Dominic has seen, and without the gloves, Dominic can see that Wesley's hands are large and calloused, and that the left ring finger still has a faint indentation where a wedding band used to be. Come in, Dominic says. Wesley steps inside. He looks at the hallway, the bench by the door, the coat hooks, the photographs on the wall. His eyes stop on a photo of Iris at age 6, just after the adoption. She's sitting on this very porch, holding a stuffed rabbit, grinning with 2 missing front teeth. Wesley stares at it for 3 full seconds. Then he looks away. Iris comes around the corner from the kitchen. She sees Wesley. She stops. For a moment, they just look at each other. The girl and the garbage man. The daughter and the father. They stand 10 feet apart in the hallway of a house that Wesley has driven past 832 times, and the space between them contains everything. 6 years, 1,000 decisions, a death, an adoption, a flannel shirt, a garbage truck, a car on a sidewalk, and a pair of brown eyes that are identical. Hi, Iris says. You're the one who saved me. Hi, Iris. Wesley's voice catches on her name. He's said it 1,000 times, in the truck, in his apartment, in the dark, in the quiet, but never to her. Never out loud in her presence. The 2 syllables carry 6 years of weight. Iris walks toward him. She's looking at his face the way she looks at faces when she's drawing them, studying the angles, the lines, the architecture of a person's features. She's cataloging him. You have eyes like mine, she says. It's the second time someone has said this. She said it to Dominic on Tuesday, and now she's saying it to Wesley, and the observation is made with the casual precision of a child who notices things that adults train themselves to overlook. Wesley kneels so they're eye level. His knees crack on the hardwood floor. He's at her height now, looking directly at her, and the resemblance is so stark, the eyes, the jawline, the particular tilt of the head, that Margot, standing in the kitchen doorway, puts her hand over her mouth. I do, Wesley says. I guess we both got lucky. Iris smiles. It's June's smile, wide, unguarded, the smile of someone who hasn't yet learned to protect herself from the world. Wesley sees it, and his chest tightens and his eyes burn, and he holds steady, because this is the moment he's driven past 832 times to reach, and he will not ruin it by falling apart. "I made you something," Iris says. She reaches into her jacket pocket and pulls out a folded piece of paper. She unfolds it and holds it out. It's the drawing. The one from the refrigerator, but not that one. A new one, more detailed, done with colored pencils. It shows a man in a reflective vest with dark hair and brown eyes, standing next to a garbage truck. The man is smiling. Behind him, the sky is blue, and the trees are amber, and there's a house with a red front door in the background. Wesley takes the drawing. He looks at it. He looks at it for a long time. "This is really good," he says. His voice is barely above a whisper. "You're really talented. My dad says I have an eye for faces." She gestures toward Dominic. "He can't draw at all. Neither can Mom. I don't know where I got it." Wesley looks at Dominic over Iris's head. Dominic looks back. The moment holds. Two fathers, one truth, and a child standing between them, drawing the connection she doesn't yet know exists. "Some things just find their way to you," Wesley says. "Like gifts. They don't always come from where you expect." They spend 2 hours together. Iris gives Wesley a tour of the house, her room, her drawing desk, her collection of colored pencils organized by shade, the purple bicycle in the garage. Wesley follows her with his hands in his pockets and his eyes taking in every detail. The bookshelf in her room, the nightlight shaped like a moon, the stuffed rabbit from the photograph in the hallway, now faded and threadbare and still on her bed. "That's been hers since before us," Margot whispers to Wesley in the hallway, while Iris runs ahead to show him the backyard. "She came with it." Wesley nods. He knows the rabbit. He bought it. It was the last thing he put in her bag when the Myers came to pick her up for foster care. A gray rabbit with a stitched smile and one ear longer than the other, bought at a drugstore for $6 because it was the softest thing on the shelf, and he wanted her to have something soft. In the backyard, Iris shows Wesley her drawings, a whole portfolio pulled from a folder she keeps in a waterproof bin under the porch. Portraits of neighbors, teachers, her friend's dog, a woman at the grocery store, each one precise, detailed, alive with a specificity that goes beyond talent into something closer to instinct. Wesley turns the pages slowly. He holds each drawing the way you hold something fragile, carefully, with both hands, giving it the attention it deserves. A portrait of the mail carrier, captured mid-stride with a bag over one shoulder and a half-smile. A drawing of the old oak tree at the end of Maple Crest Drive, its branches rendered with an understanding of structure that suggests Iris sees the architecture of things, the way things are built and held together, the bones beneath the surface. "That tree is on my route," Wesley says quietly. "I see it from my window," Iris says. "It looks different every season. I've drawn it 11 times. 11 times. The same tree Wesley passes in the truck twice a week. She's been drawing something he drives past, and neither of them knew the other was watching the same thing from a different angle." He turns another page. A portrait of June. Except it can't be June. Iris never knew June, never saw her, has no photographs. "It's a woman at the grocery store," Iris explains, who was standing in the produce aisle with her hand on a bag of oranges. But the woman has June's cheekbones, June's hair, the same angle of the jaw, the same weight in the brow. Wesley stares at the drawing and his throat tightens because the universe, or genetics, or whatever force governs these things, has given his daughter the ability to see a stranger's face and find in it the architecture of the mother she never knew. "This one's really beautiful," he says. His voice is even, his eyes are not. "Thank you. She was nice. She let me draw her for like 10 minutes and didn't even move." "This one's my favorite," she says, holding up a portrait of Dominic. It captures him perfectly. The steady eyes, the slight asymmetry of his smile, the way his hair falls across his forehead. "I drew it from memory." "It's perfect," Wesley says, and he means it in every sense of the word. The drawing is perfect, and the man in the drawing is perfect, and the life that man has built for this girl is perfect. And Wesley knows this because he has spent 4 years watching it from a garbage truck, and it is exactly what he hoped for when he signed those papers in Feldstein's office. At noon, Wesley says he should go. He's been here for 2 hours, and the 2 hours have felt like 20 minutes, and also like a lifetime. Every room has been a revelation. The bookshelf with the chapter books she's graduated to, the kitchen with Dominic's coffee mug that says "World's Best Dad," the hallway photographs that document a childhood Wesley missed. Each detail is a gift and a wound simultaneously, evidence of the life she's living and the life he couldn't give her. Iris hugs him. It's sudden and fierce and total, the way children hug without reservation, without the protective distance that adults place between themselves and the world. She wraps her arms around his waist and presses her face against his flannel shirt, and Wesley puts his hand on the back of her head and closes his eyes. Dominic walks him to the door. "Thank you," Wesley says on the porch. He's not talking about the visit. "Thank you," Dominic says. He's not talking about Tuesday. "I won't," Wesley starts and stops. "I'm not trying to replace anything. I know who her dad is. I'm not confused about that." Dominic puts his hand on Wesley's shoulder. "You're her father, Wesley. You'll always be her father, and you're welcome here. Anytime." Wesley nods. He walks down the porch steps. He reaches the sidewalk and turns back. "The flannel," he says, "the one I wore in Feldstein's office. It was June's favorite. She said I looked like a lumberjack in it." He almost smiles. "I still wear them, every important day." He walks to his car, a used sedan, clean, nothing special. He gets in. He drives past the house at 34 Maple Crest Drive, but this time he doesn't slow down because he doesn't need 4 seconds anymore. He has the whole morning. Thank you for watching this whole story. If it showed you that being a parent isn't about what you can give, it's about what you're willing to sacrifice, then please share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to Untold Hearts and tell us in the comments, what would you do if you saw that face? 3 months later. Wesley Greer still drives the garbage route on Maple Crest Drive every Tuesday and Friday. But now when he passes number 34, he doesn't slow down and peer through the windshield for a 4-second glimpse. He honks twice, 2 short blasts their signal, and Iris comes running out to the porch and waves with both arms, and he waves back through the open window, and the 4 seconds have become 10, then 15, then however long it takes for the truck to clear the end of the block. He has dinner at the Carvers on Sundays. He sits at the kitchen table in his flannel shirt, and he eats Margot's pot roast, and he helps Iris with her drawings, and he talks to Dominic about things that have nothing to do with garbage or adoption or the 6 years they lost, sports, weather, the leak in the Carver's roof that Dominic has been meaning to fix and that Wesley fixes in an afternoon because he's good with his hands and always has been. The first Sunday dinner was awkward in the way that all important things are awkward. Too much silence, too many loaded pauses, too many moments where someone almost said something and decided not to. Wesley sat at the table with his hands in his lap and his posture rigid, the posture of a man who has been invited somewhere he doesn't believe he belongs. Margot served the food and kept the conversation moving because Margot is the kind of person who can navigate a room full of unspoken truths the way she navigates a building plan, structurally, with an eye for where the weight needs to go. By the 3rd Sunday, something had shifted. Wesley relaxed enough to lean back in his chair. Iris started bringing her sketchbook to the table and drawing while the adults talked. She drew Wesley's hands, the calluses, the thick knuckles, the way he wraps his fingers around a coffee mug. And when she showed him the drawing, he stared at it for a long time and said, "You got the scar on the thumb right. Most people don't notice that." "What's it from?" Iris asked. "Hydraulic lever on the truck. Caught it wrong about 2 years ago." "Does it hurt?" "Not anymore." That wasn't entirely true. But Wesley is a man who has learned to distinguish between the things that hurt and the things that matter. And a scar on his thumb falls into the first category but not the second. By the 6th Sunday, Iris had started saving things to show him. A drawing she was proud of, a grade she'd gotten on a test, a rock she found at recess that looked like a turtle. She'd stacked these things on the kitchen counter before he arrived, a small exhibition curated for an audience of 1, and when Wesley walked through the red front door, she'd grab his hand and pull him to the counter and say, "Look what I saved for you." Wesley keeps one of the drawings in his truck, taped to the dashboard next to the route schedule and the photo of June that he's carried for 9 years. The drawing shows a garbage truck on a street with autumn leaves, and next to the truck, a man in a reflective vest, and next to the man, a girl with a braid. The girl's waving. The man is waving back. It's not art. It's not precise the way her portraits are precise. It's a child's drawing of something that matters to her, rendered in colored pencil with the unself-conscious honesty that adults lose and never recover. Wesley looks at it every morning before he starts the route, and it reminds him of what the 4 seconds were always about. Not watching, but waiting. Waiting for the morning when watching wouldn't be enough, and he'd have to step off the truck and into her life. That morning came, and he was ready. Iris still doesn't know, not the full truth. She knows Wesley is the garbage man who saved her. She knows he comes for dinner on Sundays. She knows he has eyes like hers and hands that are gentle when he helps her blend colored pencil shading. She calls him Mr. Wesley, which makes him smile and break a little at the same time, the way all things that are almost right do. They'll tell her. When she's ready, when the foundation is strong enough to hold the weight of the truth without cracking. Dominic and Margot and Wesley have agreed on this. The 3 of them, around the kitchen table after Iris went to bed, speaking in low voices about timing and readiness and the particular calculus of a child's capacity to absorb information that reshapes her understanding of who she is. She'll have questions, Margot said. She'll have every right to them, Wesley said. And we'll answer all of them, Dominic said, together. Wesley still drives the garbage route. He still wears the vest and the gloves and the boots. He still empties the bins and hauls the bags and does the work that nobody sees. But on Tuesday and Friday mornings, when the truck reaches Maple Crest Drive and the horn sounds twice and a girl comes running out of a house with a red front door waving with both arms, the man behind the wheel is not invisible anymore. He is seen. By the daughter who drew his face before she knew his name. By the father who opened a door he didn't have to open. By the family that made room for one more at the table. He is seen. And that is everything.